financial experts on my table, we just trying to connect. Working smarter, not harder, getting money that makes sense. I'm an asset. Focus on the bag.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Gina, aka your favorite hype girl. Welcome back to another episode on What's the Hype Podcast. Today, I am so grateful to have this gorgeous woman on my platform. For those who may not know, the one and only, let me put y'all on real quick. This phenomenal woman was featured in Forbes for developing a generation of borrowers to pay down their debts and became the CEO of the first Black-owned and women-owned student loan repair company. She was also featured on The Shade Room that highlighted her up-and-coming from her starting consulting her local church members to her community that later on grew to her community, bringing their friends to her for help in their student loan crisis. She is known to host student loan clinics nationwide. She was featured in Essence magazine in 2020 for dedicating her life to help women save millions of dollars in student loan debt. Ms. Lewis and her team work with more than 500 new clients per month. Ms. Lewis is a speaker, she's an author, and a doctoral degree recipient. In 2 years, the Thestudentloandoctor has helped thousands of borrowers collectively save over $4 million in student loans. From overdraft queen to the student loan doctor, let's welcome Ms.Sonia Lewis. Yes, I'm so grateful to be on my podcast. It's like crazy because I was just scrolling on IG one day and I came across their page and I was amazed. I'm like, where have you been all my life? Like, these student loans been kicking my behind. Like, about to have my hype so high, right? And I was on cloud nine because when he mentioned student loan forgiveness, and I was so happy and excited, but now everything's on hold and I'm crushed. But I'm so glad to have this opportunity with you as my first ever guest because I know a lot of healthcare professionals still paying their student loans, and a lot of students are taking thousands of dollars worth of loans to pay for school with little to no idea of what they're getting themselves into. And I remember going to radiology school, and all I cared about was just starting. I didn't care about how much it was going to cost me. And I swear, I'll just, I'm going to pay it off later when I start working, and now I'm looking crazy. Okay. And I want to make sure you guys that are watching it or listening are well educated about student loan options and making sure that, that you guys are able to pay it off sooner than expected and trying to get these loans forgiven because life is lifing right now, okay? Especially for me. So on today's episode, we're going to dive into some gems that the medical industry can relate to and how to overcome one of the biggest burdens we all face, which are student loans, okay? So I'm gonna jump on in with you with our first question. What are some obstacles you faced that made you realize like you need to step out of the box and start your own business in the student loan repairment program?
So this platform really was created by what I call a beautiful accident. So 2015, 16, I was going through my own journey of getting out of student loan debt. And this is my professional background. Let me say that. So I've been in the field of higher education since 2010. So I'm very comfortable with talking about financial aid, college planning after college. And so when I was going through this journey of my own personal finances, I was like, no, wait a minute. Who can we talk about this with? Like, who is the guru? Who has the answers? And what's funny is I did have the answers, but I just initially wasn't comfortable being the person. So long story short, I feel like, God has a sense of humor. There were so many scenarios I was put into to like be the expert. And I also, this is part of my dissertation, how does student loan debt affect African-American women? And so I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just start to talk about it, share my expertise. So it really started with me going around the city, doing a little programming, doing some one-on-one conversations. And the Shade Room is what really blew it up, like outside of the city of Philadelphia. It went like whoosh, like overnight. The good thing is I was like super prepared for that because I knew what God had told me, which was to scale and grow. And so now being that we just help so many people with our platform is really a big blessing and a good example of obedience too. So I knew it was a problem when people started showing up to our events, free events, mind you, packed out line around the door to hear
Oh,
about
wow.
student loan debt. So I was like, oh, this might be a big thing, you know? And it's been consistent ever since. So it's been good.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So what are some things people who are pursuing a career in the medical field and those who have invested years into in the medical field can do to close that generational wealth gap in their families?
So a couple of things. I always say before you can help somebody else, you got to help yourself. So if
Mm.
you're in the medical field, you're listening to this, kudos. I'm glad you found this podcast because there's a lot of programming in relation to loan forgiveness that a lot of people just don't know about or take the time to learn about. So let me just give you an example. There are a lot of programs for loan forgiveness for nurses. There are programs under the HILL program that are for doctors. So just depending on your industry and the type of nurse you are, the type of doctor you are, you want to look into these loan forgiveness programs. My favorite resource is studentaid.gov. That's going to really allow you to learn about all programming. We have an ebook called the Ultimate Loan Forgiveness ebook. We help people with the ebook, like actual step-by-step on how to apply. It's not difficult. The challenge here, to be really transparent, is that there's so much information that people get overwhelmed and then they don't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like sometimes if you are like the first to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
or let's say you're the first to go get your master's or your doctoral degree, it is really your job, almost like, I don't want to say burden, to be that advice and source for other people.
Right.
Such a big deal. So what does that look like? So just to give you a little example here, one of those things that you want to look out for, if you're the person, right? I really want to stress this, or can't stress this enough. You have to almost kind of use your college experience,
Mm-hmm.
your experience getting student loans, and help your family member not go down the same path. You know, things are changing. Things are digital now. There's so many online applications and websites and sources and apps to help people with scholarships. So we want to, if you're listening, it's almost like I kind of want you to think about your family, your cousins, your sisters, your nieces, your nephews. What did you experience with the financial aid process that can be different for them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And by you even exposing them to this podcast, it can give them some insight as to what could come and why they should borrow responsibly if they have to use student loans.
Right. That's good. That's what's up. Now, in your experience, what community is mostly affected by student loan debt, and what profession do you see that struggles the most?
Well, community in terms of ethnicity, of course, I would say African Americans, but particularly women. Women, in comparison to their counterparts, particularly white males, have, I would say, 75% more student loan debt. So we just talk about the person in itself. I know that if you and I are at the same job, my student loan debt might be, let's say, 80,000. Steve might have student loan debt of 15,000 or zero. Sarah might have 30,000. And it's really yoked in terms of borrowing, because sometimes you need a lot more support in college, and their family may have not been able to provide it. And there's also a lack of awareness about understanding money and understanding borrowing and how interest works, right? When we talk about professions, I feel like when we talk about the community of professions, we see our social workers most burdened, we see our teachers, but in the healthcare profession, we really see our nurses most burdened. So it just depends, right? Like doctors have a lot of student loan debt too. Their student loan debt can be different though. The earning potential for doctors usually start off in the six-figure range. Most doctors are coming right into six figures. And if you're wise, you may take the first couple of years to really live off of minimum living and pay your loans off, right? With nurses, it's similar, but most nurses, it kind of changed after the pandemic, are making right at six figures, sometimes over. But the student loan debt is that equal of a doctor. And so therefore we see it takes nurses a little longer to pay off this six-figure debt than, let's say, a doctor would have at time periods. Does that make sense? So it just depends on, I would say, the profession, the income expected to earn and the time in which someone has in their field in terms of what they're starting off and getting through their job is going to determine how difficult it is for repayment.
Wow. So my next question is, what is the best advice you can give to a student that wants to pursue a career in the medical field that doesn't have financial support? Like myself, like when I went to radiology school, I was at a point in my life where my mom was retired and my dad was literally just diagnosed with dementia. So from a student like me, like what best advice can you give a student like me?
Well, it just depends. I think when I'm meeting different people at different walks of life, depending on your financial background and your family's background, we've got to set some realistic goals. And sometimes it's hard to have conversations with people we care about, younger people particularly, because we don't want to like burst their bubble. But to be really honest with you, the conversation for college planning, and this is why we have to really take care of those around us that we love and support. It really, the conversation starts like in middle school and in high school about, going for those good grades. You've got to get a scholarship. So I'm going to give you my example. So my mom got sick when I was 16. She almost lost her life. She was in a coma for a year. Oh, wow. She had got what's called bacterial meningitis. Yes. Wow. Mm-hmm. And so, with that, you either lose your hearing, your eyesight, or you die. You get one of three. You don't leave unscathed, right? And I remember, I'm only child, by the way, just me and my mom. So I remember when this happened, I was in, I think, 10th grade. I remember thinking to myself, man, I got to kick it up. Like I was a good student, but I remember something happened in 10th grade where I became a stellar student. I needed this scholarship money. Now I knew that I wanted to go to college, and college was always the vision. And my mom's vision was to help me pay for a state college. We were going to go on a payment plan. We had talked about the vision, but when she got tragically sick, life changed, right? Like same thing with your father. Like you're like, oh, right. So for me, I was like, well, I'm going to college, and I'm gonna have to get these type of grades. And then I really buckled down. I really appreciate my support system in the school, which was the principal and like the college advisor. And so I still have to say, by the time I graduated, I left my high school with $20,000 in scholarships. I went to college.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know I was getting that money either. The day of graduation, let me back up. The day before graduation, we had what they call award ceremonies. Mm-hmm. So I showed up. I didn't think I was getting no daggone award. Child, they handed me an envelope with all these checks, like paper checks. And they kept calling my name. I remember that day, but you got to remember that at that time, my mom was really sick. So I felt like I was blurry. I was in that environment at the auditorium, but I was thinking about my mom. Is she gonna wake up from the coma? I was not present. Like, matter of fact, let me back up. No. My mom just woke up from the coma, and she had a trach, and the trach was coming out. Girls, all types of stuff happening. I really didn't even want to go to college initially because I didn't want to leave her with my grandma. My grandmother was her caretaker. But long story short, my grandmother graduated from college. My mom graduated from college. They're like, you going to college, right? Yeah. So it was like, I wanted to stay home, but they wouldn't let me. So anyway, I'm at this award ceremony, like, I wonder if my mom okay. I just remember all being a blur. Long story short, I get $20,000 in checks. And my principal was like, everything that's in there you deserve. She was like, you're a stellar student. I was busting out like straight A's and visiting my mom after school each day and taking her to doctor appointments, leaving school early. Girl, I don't know who I thought it was back then. Some type of superwoman. Girl, I was 17, but I was in the mindset of like a 25-year-old. Like I used to get passes to leave school. I mean, this is why I just gotta be God's favorite. Like this ain't normal what I'm telling you.
Yes, and like at one the same thing with my dad going in school. Yeah, I know. I've been in your shoes before many times for more than like a little over 7 years, and it is tough, especially in high school. I couldn't even process it in college, but in high school, listen here, you are definitely God's favorite, one of God's favorites, and you see how God works, blessing in disguise. So your hard work and your dedication to not only your mom but your education definitely has paid off. Now, what is the best advice you can give to like a medical professional that is drowning in debt and is stuck in a financial burden? Because, I work with a lot of people that are still trying to pay off their student loans, and they've been trying to hold it back for as long as they can. And then now Biden is talking about student loan forgiveness and everybody excited. Now it's back on hold. So now they're in the mindset of, okay, what is next? I'm still stuck in a financial burden. So what advice can you give them?
For someone that's going into repayment?
Mm-hmm. Like, it's still got to pay. Those payments are still pending. Can't forbear no more.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The pandemic pause was a blessing and a curse. So if you're listening to this, we're coming out of the pandemic pause. If you're listening to this years later, you might have missed it. You survived. Okay. So we'll talk about the person that's coming out of it in real time, right? So we're going into repayment as of September 2023. Technically, the pause ends in July, but that first payment is not expected until September 2023. The good news is we got a lot of good stuff coming up. They're going to be lowering for everyone. Income-driven repayment plans are going to be lowered. So you're going to go back into repayment with a little more ease. So whatever your payment plan was prior, expect a 5% less difference to be paying based off of your income. I think also they're going to be more flexibility. We have new loan lenders. We have new players on the board. And the administration is really committed to making sure customer service is good, it's prompt, and they're really having an ear to the street, if you will, about what's happening in the world of student loans. They're making programming easier. So my favorite program right now is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Like, most of the people that are going to listen to your episode are going to be eligible because they work in public service. And the good news is, I feel like a good news reporter, if you're working as a contractor, but let's say you work for a hospital, a qualified location, but not a W-2, because a lot of people got excluded from this before. But even as a 1099, you're now, as of July, eligible for the PSLF program. That's such amazing news. Now, I don't know if they're going to be I don't know if they're going to backtrack eligibility, but moving forward, you're going to be eligible to accumulate payments to get to the 120 mark. So I'm really, really excited for those that are listening to your podcast, because, in the healthcare field, you're of service, but you might be hired as a contractor and not an employee. And I just thought it was always unfair that you're doing the same job as Susan, who's an employee, but you didn't get the opportunity to get forgiveness credit. Right. Now you can. So we're going to have a whole class about it on my platform. I'm actually probably weirdly excited about some of this because I know the impact it's going to have. And then the other update that's coming that's really major in December of 2023 is that if you were in forbearance, right? I call these my never ever clients. Like, you ain't never ever expected to make no payments. So what happened was, when you was in forbearance, your lender was supposed to give you an opportunity to say, hey, I'm unable to afford this amount. Would I be able to afford this amount instead? But what happened was, they said, you know what? You can't afford it. We're going to put you in what? Forbearance. But that's not really the correct thing. Right. That's not really the correct thing to do. It was supposed to be that they were supposed to work with you and find out what you could pay. Because a lot of people didn't notice, every payment that counted in an IDR plan counted towards you getting out quicker with repayment. There's a time limit that you're supposed to be in when you're repaying your loans, or when you're in loan forgiveness, either program. They never counted the time, child. So they had to go back and admit that lenders made that mistake. So in December, they're going to be awarding people up to 36 months of backdated credit. So it's called an IDR adjustment. You can go to studentaid.gov and learn more, or if they visit my page, I have clips in conversation about it. Watch it, learn it, and look out for it. It's going to be an automatic process. So we got some really, really good stuff coming up as we go back into the world of repayment. This thing is not perfect, but I feel really confident that a lot of people can tackle their loans and be on top of what they need to be on top of. So it's going to be good. We got you covered. It's going to be
That's awesome. And I'm definitely going to stay tuned in, because Kaiser, I've been avoiding Kaiser for a long, long time. And I've been paying a little here, a little there. But I'm so ready to get rid of these Kaiser loans. Those who went to Kaiser understand they're expensive for no reason, Jesus. It's like, I'm so ready to get that chapter closed into my life. Now,
Mm.
my last question for you is, how can healthcare professionals and students maximize their earning potentials with connecting with you and your team?
So if someone is thinking about working with the team, I think we're going to be like everyone's best friend in the next 2 months. Things are a little slow right now because we've been doing a lot of digital content and teaching. You want to work with someone, if you are like listening to this podcast and you're like, girl, I haven't been paying nobody loans in like 3 years and I'm just lost, confused. We're going to be providing what we call discovery calls so we can see how we can help. You know, we've been doing this thing for going on 8 years now. We can hear and understand what it is you need based off of what you share. Everybody's situation is different. Some people might be in default from when they was in default 3 years ago, but now they're going to learn that there's a new program out called the Fresh Start program that literally gives you a one-time, it's like a get out of jail free card. You don't got to use the time. You might need it later if you get on default again. It's called like a fresh restart. We're going to do more content teaching on it as they release more details about it. I'm so excited that out of this pandemic, a lot of people are going to get the reset they needed for their loans. So if you're working with us, you could just simply book a discovery call and say, hey, y'all, I don't know where to begin. This is how much I owe. This is what I do for work. What would you advise? Boom. We can give you different scenarios because we're really, really affordable. Maybe you just want to start with a DIY situation that's like $20 ebook. Maybe you want to have a consultation where a coach goes into your programming with you, look over your stuff, $75. Maybe you find that when you log in with your coach, everything is a mess. You need to apply for forgiveness. You need some, and so our prices are so affordable because we just want to get people to work that they need, do it really quickly and move on. We have so many people to serve, so we don't string you along for 10 years. Like, it's like, okay, girl, we're going to do this in this appointment. Check the email, did you get that? And then we move on. Because again, with all the benefits that are coming up, you got to have your loans clean and clear, meaning you're not in default or behind. You got to be in the direct loan programs, can't be behind in FFEL. So I just think that it's just going to be a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline. If you're not sure, just reach out for help and ask. This is not the time to be confused or left behind. We're doing as much content and teaching more than ever in life that we've ever done. So you can catch us at 11 a.m. class. We do classes in the morning, at night. We do a lot of digital content. It's just so much. And so if they're listening to your podcast, drop in the show notes, the Instagram link, drop them off and let people just learn and figure it out for themselves. But it's going to be a lot to take in the next few months. So we're gearing up like now early so people are not overwhelmed. So that's a great question.
Wow. I'm very excited for what you got going on. And I'm probably going to be a part of it too, because I need help figuring out these student loans. I have a little bit of left and I don't know where to begin or which application to start on. I'm at a point in my life like I don't even want to pay that money, to be honest. Just forgive.
You don't have to. I think this is a good. Thank you for saying that. I think that a lot of people are not going to have to pay them if they get in the right program. But you do know how hard it is every day to repeat myself to apply for a program that's clearing 6-figure debt. Like literally, I had a young lady earlier today in a class. She was like, Sonia, you're going to kill me. I have worked in a nonprofit setting for 12 years and never applied. What? And I know who she is because she be on all the classes since I was talking about it. And I'm not mad at nobody. It's your life. But I said, well, why? She was like, I just didn't feel confident that I was going to get approved. But now you just saw me post over 100 people, and there's more I haven't posted. People that are like you and I, everyday people that are getting $50,000, $200,000. One person got $633,000 forgiven.
Really?
I'm like, girl,
wow,
it is a free application if you don't get out your feelings. And that's the thing about women. I got to say this. This got to be the season where you're about your business and not about your emotions. Right. I know you might feel a certain type of way, but we have nothing to do with that. Okay. We need to make sure that you get out of your feelings and get into your bag. That's why I say get in your business bag and take care of business. Don't let these great programs pass you by because you were overwhelmed or concerned or confused. Anybody got time for that? Tune in, get some information, pay for a little help if you need it, like if you really that overwhelmed, and it will make the difference. Somebody will probably pay us what for a consult, $75, maybe 10 times over, if I'm telling you we can get $200,000 forgiven if that's what you owe. Does that make sense? So this got to be something we just get to work.
Wow, I am so glad I got you onto this podcast, child. I learned a lot myself. Now, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you again, Ms. Lewis, for joining me today on my podcast, sharing major gems with the healthcare industry. Make sure you guys stay tuned into another episode on What's the Hype Podcast. Make sure you guys follow Ms. Lewis on social media at Thestudentloandoctor. Make sure you check out Ms. Lewis' podcast, That's Weird. That will be launching on YouTube May 5th. She's also helping 100 business owners start their own nonprofit. She has a DIY ebook program, AI edition, that starts May 7th. Ms. Lewis, is there anything else you want to throw in there that the people may need to know? Because you got a lot going on. I want to make sure they know they have all the resources available.
No, I think we've got it all covered. I think that we are really going to help someone with this episode tonight. I think, well, I know it comes out earlier, but we're recording this in the evening. I think that if they just are listening to your podcast and they're ready to execute and really get some help, I think that they've come to the right place. Thank you for having me as a guest. I really think that the work you're doing is important. I want them to stay tuned to the other episodes that you put out, because when somebody cares enough to be a leading authority in a field like you are, you got to get behind people and support them. So I'm wishing you much, much success. I can't wait to share it with my tribe, because we got a lot of people in the healthcare field that need this podcast. And then we're just hoping that it grows by everyone sharing it with their colleagues, their coworkers, their neighbors, their family members. That's how we pass on good information, by being sharers of the information. So I'm excited to see what's to come.
Oh, thank you. Make sure you guys continue showing me love. I love my day one supporters. This episode is sponsored by Hype Lifestyle app that connects financial girls like Ms. Lewis to help maximize your earning potential. And don't forget to sign up for Hype Lifestyle apparel waitlist as well. Thank you, and see you guys on the next episode.